What's going on, everyone? My name is Mike Rhinehart, and for my project, I chose to discuss the potential move of the Tampa Bay Rays from the St. Pete area in their current field, Tropicana Field, to a new location across the bay in Tampa. The reason that this has been such a hot topic in Tampa and St. Pete and around the Bay Area is because the Rays, although they are a winning team and a good baseball team, have had the worst attendance over the past decade. In fact, last year, Forbes magazine took some numbers down and had them as the dead last, the lowest attendance per game at an average of 18,646. They were the only team to actually be under 19,000 per game. That's a pretty big effect, considering that they have had 6 straight winning seasons, 4 playoff berths out of those 6 years, 1 World Series appearance, and a division title. Normally when you see teams win in this manner, they have increased attendance. Take the Yankees and the Red Sox, constantly sell out games. They're perennial winners. The Rays follow the same path on the field, but unfortunately not in the ticket sales department. The only thing that can be seen as the problem is the stadium. They win games, they make it to the playoffs, and still nobody comes to the games. It's got to be the stadium. The stadium itself is very old. It was built in 1991, and it's located in downtown St. Pete, right at the junction of I-275 and I-175, on the outskirts of downtown St. Pete. I included a picture in the PowerPoint so you can kind of see a general aerial view of it. You can see how it's right at the corner of the 2 interstates, small parking lot, and then you can see the skyline in the background. And it may seem like it's in the right spot. The text says that you don't want to be in the center of the city as land's more expensive, but you want to be more towards the outskirts so you can still attract those people. The interstate's right next to it would seem like easy access. Unfortunately, as you can see from the picture, there's no exits right by the stadium, so you have to go around and navigate the tricky one-way streets of downtown St. Pete, which is no fun for anyone. In addition to the frustration getting there, once you get there, the atmosphere isn't what you want from a baseball game. Fans pay to go to a game, not just to watch it. They can do that at home on their couch from their TV for free. They go to games for the experience, for the atmosphere, and fans just aren't getting that at Tropicana Field. There's nobody tailgating when you go there. There's not a whole lot of room, to be honest. They pack the parking lots like sardine cans, and you still got to walk a pretty good distance to get there. So obvious upgrades need to be made. Ease of getting there is a huge thing. I know when I go to games, most people tend to leave early just to avoid the traffic rush. Now the question is, will a new stadium help bring attendance, or is it just an idea that they want to move, they want something new, a change of scenery? According to the text, studies have shown, and past numbers have shown, that new stadiums do in fact increase attendance, specifically in the years right after their construction. As a matter of fact, a study done on all professional sports showed that Major League Baseball stadiums, when teams construct new stadiums, attribute greater increases in attendance than any other sport. In Major League Baseball, a new stadium increases attendance by about 33%. So that's a pretty big chunk. I mean, you'd have a third more fans there. That's never bad. Studies also show that this excitement and increased attendance only lasts so long. The text defines this as the honeymoon effect, which basically states that whatever's new is better and you want it. So the new stadium's going to draw people. They want to see the stadium. Everyone likes things that are new and flashy. But we've seen in the past that this wears off. Studies suggest around 10 years, but we've seen it work. We've seen it hold steady, and we've seen it drop off quicker than that. A few examples would be the Baltimore Orioles and the Cleveland Indians. In 1994, the Indians erected their new stadium, and in 1992, the Orioles built Camden Yards. This also started the whole retro stadium look that teams are following now, but when they built these, both teams were very good baseball teams. They were winning games, and they built these new stadiums, and they saw phenomenal increases in attendance for close to a decade. It wasn't until that their play dropped off in the early 2000s that they started to see their attendance fall, eventually back to levels pre-new stadium. we see that the stadium helped get their boost, the original boost in attendance, their play on the field kept it while they were playing well. But people get disinterested really quick. We live in a very "what have you done for me lately" society. So when the losses start to pile up, fans tend to leave. An example on the other end of the spectrum would be the Milwaukee Brewers. In 2001, they had after the 2001 season, they moved into Miller Park, and following that, in the 2002 season, their attendance increased by an absurd 80%. So that's a huge number, and things look great for them, but unfortunately, the new stadium didn't help them be better baseball players. They continued to lose games, and after just 2 short years, attendance fell to the levels they were prior to the new stadium. So Milwaukee didn't really get their money's worth, but we've seen that the new stadium, the executives getting the team the new stadium can spur the interest, but it's up to the team and the players and the coaches to keep the interest. So it's coming from both ends. Both sides have to work together. Can the Rays sustain after the honeymoon effect? I believe so. They've done a phenomenal job thus far of competing with the lowest payroll in baseball. They have a very good system in place, and I believe that no matter who signs there, and I think only more money will only help them. They'll be able to keep players like David Price instead of following this path of waiting till someone gets good, their contract runs out, and then we trade them for young talent that we have to groom. The location to Tampa, the move to Tampa also makes sense because looking at the numbers, Tampa's population is 29% higher than St. Pete's. So that's a big difference in and of itself, almost a third more people in Tampa. In addition, last year, according to a government website, Tampa's population grew by 23%, while St. Pete's fell by 1%. So we have a larger population trending upward and a smaller population trending downward. It would make sense economically to want to move the team and the stadium to where the most people are, so the most people can come and enjoy the experience. There's a couple arguments on both sides of the equation. You obviously have the Rays and the Rays fans and the people that live in Tampa that want the stadium to come to Tampa, so it's easier for them to get the games. But a lot of the articles clearly stated that paying $500 million for a new stadium just so people wouldn't have to drive as far for games is really not feasible. So they look into other things. It undoubtedly would increase attendance. Studies have shown that. The Rays will probably keep that attendance. That's just speculation, but I believe they will. They will have increased attendance, which will increase revenue and allow the team to compete better with the teams in their division and potentially take the next step to winning a World Series. The attendance increases go hand in hand with more room. Stadium with better parking, better facilities will just facilitate a better game experience and atmosphere than currently Tropicana does. The downside and the counterpoints to that argument mostly come from the city of St. Petersburg, who funded the team, got them on their feet, and dealt with countless years of the Devil Rays being the laughingstock of the league while still, supporting them. St. Pete stands to lose a considerable amount of revenue from the team. We've seen that sports programs, teams rather, do boost an economy, but not as much as you'd think. The other major cost that St. Pete would incur would be the money still owed on the current stadium, which totals around $80 million, and most of that was to be paid off through the next 4 years' rent payments by the Rays. So that's a big chunk of change that the St. Pete's looks like they're going to have to take if Tampa ups and moves. The only problem being that they're under contract until 2027 at Tropicana Field, and they signed the contract with a no buyout clause, which is one of the reasons that this move is being held up and that Major League Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig hasn't stepped in yet. The other thing is the cost to the taxpayers. A lot of people in Tampa just hear, "Oh, Rays coming to Tampa, we want that. That's good. It's going to have more money in the economy, generate more business. We'll be able to go to games." And that's all well and good and very true, but at the same time, they have to understand that that money is going to come from someone. It's going to be them. Early plans that have been proposed show that the taxpayers would incur about 1/3 of the cost of the new stadium in new taxes. The rest would come from maybe the MLB, the team itself, naming rights from the stadium, sponsorships, and even reserve taxes from when the city funded the building of Raymond James Stadium. So taxpayers stand to pay at least a third of the cost, most likely more, if it were to happen and they dig into those reserves taxes. The move would be costly, but I believe beneficial. It's clear that some sort of compromise is going to have to be worked out between the city of Tampa and the owner of the Rays and the St. Pete mayor, rather. Unfortunately, right now, there's not much wiggle room. Both sides are too extremely apart. The St. Pete mayor has said that the Rays generate $100 million in economic activity per year for St. Pete. That number is believed by most of the research I've done to be grossly overestimated. It's more towards a max of $35 million, which is still a considerable amount of money, but as you can see, St. Pete Mayor Bill Foster has no intention of letting the Rays walk away from this, and the Rays truly don't want to stay in St. Pete and at Tropicana Field. They know that in order to take the next step, they need to move to a new stadium that allows them to generate these revenues. I think eventually that Major League Baseball is going to have to step in. They're just never going to get the attendance in St. Pete at Tropicana Field. It's been there for too long. They've been a winning franchise. They almost brought us a World Series, and still a challenge to sell out games. In addition, another thing that I read through my research was that moving the stadium across the bay actually opens us up to more potential fans, a larger potential fan base. As we don't have a lot of competition, the MLB does a good job of eliminating competition, so there's not too much in one area. But unlike New York, where you have a very large market and a dense area, and you have the Mets and the Yankees, our closest competitor to the south is the Miami Marlins, who are in the National League, so not really too much competition fan-wise. And then the closest to the north would be the Atlanta Braves, again, another National League team. So there's not a whole lot standing in the way of the expansion of the Rays, but I think that moving from St. Pete across the bay to Tampa to a more premier location is imperative to the success of this franchise.